I need to report on the latest aftermath of what happened at that homosexual compound. And what I'd like to say is what I'm reporting now is with brain-to-brain communications, because the Jesuits have sabotaged our Church of Gail website and have made it so that my men cannot safely communicate with me right now. Let me explain what really happened. I've made some previous YouTube videos about this that are not 100% accurate. What happened was Brent Spiner, Matthew McConaughey, Gerard Butler, Terrence Jenkins, Vladimir Putin, and Kim Jong-il were in Las Vegas, Nevada, as a group headed towards a McDonald's to go eat. And as they were headed towards this McDonald's, a big black limousine, I think it was a Hummer, came by and put a taser net over all of them, and taser transported them. That is, they were all inside this net, and they were, I would call it taser transported them to a homosexual compound. But what we did not realize at the time was that they took Brent, Matthew, Gerard, and Terrence to the homosexual compound, and they did a switch out inside the taser net where, I guess because the men were in such shock, they didn't realize what was happening when they were inside the taser net. And a Vladimir Putin clone and a Kim Jong-il clone were introduced inside the taser net that had Brent, Matthew, Gerard, and Terrence. And the real the real Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-il were taser transported inside a separate net over to a North Korean Jesuit military installation. And they were held as prisoners of war from about December 5th till about December the 13th or 14th. And we thought, and then while all the men were at this homosexual compound, and these about 1,000 homosexuals raped them, and some of the Jesuits put salt water, they put injections into the Vladimir Putin clone and the Kim Jong-il clone, and those clones put on one big performance, and we thought they were injected with a mind-controlling chemical to make them appear crazy in their sexual performance, because Vladimir was making love to dolphins. Kim Jong-il and Vladimir were kissing each other on the lips, and they were making love to each other, then doing all sorts of other vulgar homosexual and type sex, which is totally out of character for Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-il. And we thought that that was the result of the drugs. This was a clever Jesuit ruse, and we did not realize that those were the Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-il clones putting on a performance so that we would not realize that the real Vladimir Putin had been kidnapped and was taken prisoner in a North Korean Jesuit prison. While the real Vladimir Putin was at this North Korean prison, he was told that he could communicate with some of his Russians, but if he told us that he was at this prison, that he would be nuked, that they would nuke the place where he was at. So he couldn't let us know that he was imprisoned at this North Korean prison. So he did know about the riots happening in Russia while he was at the prison, because the Jesuits let him know some things, and they let him operate somewhat as head of state so that we wouldn't suspect that he was taken as prisoner, and he was able to make some decisions as like a Russian head of state. But he was limited in what he could do, which explains his silence during the Russian riots over the December 4th parliamentary elections, which the Jesuits allege were rigged. While Vladimir was at this homosexual compound, they tortured him and mutilated his face in the process. And they said, "We'll stop torturing you if you will make a public statement that Gail Cord-Schuler is crazy and that you don't know her and you have nothing to do with her." And he refused to do that. So they tortured him and mutilated his face. He wouldn't give in to their demands. Vladimir Putin loves me, and he would die for me, and so he wouldn't give in, and they mutilated his face. If you look at the most recent video footage of Vladimir Putin after we rescued him around December 13th and he was able to go on this 4.5-hour talk show, you can see his lip is kind of distorted up like this. And now the Jesuits are trying to cover up what they did to him, claiming that he used Botox for plastic surgery. But let me tell you, Vladimir Putin is he might have had plastic surgery done on his face, but it's not because he's vain or because he's trying to look pretty or handsome. It's to cover up what the Jesuits did to his face when he was tortured in the North Korean prison. And if he was going to have Botox to try to make himself look better, why couldn't they get his lip quite right? Apparently, they really bashed his mouth in because despite all the plastic surgery, you can see his lips a little bit up like this. I think Vladimir Putin could afford a better plastic surgery job than that. It was obvious he was tortured, that they bashed his face in, or especially around the lip area. And he just tried to fix it up the best he could with plastic surgery. Apparently, maybe the Jesuits thought we'd never figure this out so soon. And I guess God Almighty was looking out for him. So Vladimir Putin was and Kim Jong-il also was being tortured. And from what I hear, the real Kim Jong-il was tortured even worse than Vladimir Putin. And there was a time that if you look at my website on the fourth web page called gabrielchana.com/blog blog.html, you'll see a picture of Vladimir Putin where Jesuit thugs beat him up around a year ago, and he had bruises right up in this area. And at that time, the Jesuits covered, and he did win that one, and he beat him up, but he got a bit of a beating, and he had to get plastic surgery for that too, to try to cover that up, and he had to wear heavy makeup. And then the way the Jesuits covered that up is they just claim he's a vain man, and he's doing all this to try to make himself look good, that he had plastic surgery. But let me tell you, he's doing this because the Jesuits are beating him up. And then he's getting plastic surgery done to cover up what they've done to his face. And I would like to say that regarding the December 4th elections, I did make a correct statement. I was able to speak with Terence Jenkins on Skype, and he did say that when you subtract the Jesuit vote, 70% of the Russians voted for the United Russia Party in those elections. The Jesuits are lying and counting their own votes, which are illegal in Russia. And if there was a ballot stuffing at the ballots, Vladimir was not aware of it. This was not something he endorsed. It was probably Jesuit agents at the ballots, stuffing the ballots, trying to make Vladimir look bad. And the way Vladimir is trying to fix this in the future is he's going to have streaming webcams at the ballot boxes to photograph what happens at during the voting. And he's planning on doing this during the presidential elections. So at this gay compound, Vladimir and Kim Jong-il clone had a salt water injection, and they were just pretending like they were under mind control drugs. They were Jesuits. Now, what's really sad about this is because we did not realize that these were clones, and we thought this was the real Vladimir Putin. Those Jesuits are so clever. This evil Vladimir Putin clone was able to get into our Church of Gail website and sabotage all our scanners and mess up the website. And now it is one big stinking mess. And none of my men feel safe getting on there right now. They also messed up the Church of Gail tower. And my men were staying at the Church of Gail tower to recuperate from all the bukkake, the Jesuit semen that they ingested into their mouth from this homosexual compound when they were raped by these homosexuals, and they had infections in their throat where Brent couldn't speak, and Matthew had AIDS and gonorrhea, Matthew McConaughey, and they had all these infections and they couldn't get over them. The reason they couldn't get over them, well, they were nasty infections. Can you imagine what it would be like to take 200 homosexuals apiece and all ejaculating into your mouth? What horrible infections you could get, though we have some amazing technology. But the reason that they couldn't get over the infections is because the Vladimir Putin clone sabotaged the Church of Gail tower, sabotaged our scanners, and put Jesuit doctors in there to work on our men, which explains why we somehow mysteriously couldn't get rid of these infections. We didn't figure out that these were Jesuit doctors until after we discovered that it was a Vladimir Putin clone and not the real Vladimir Putin, who was at that homosexual compound, faking like he had been was under the control of mind control drugs from the injection. Once we got the real Vladimir Putin back, we realized that the Church of Gail website is one big mess right now. The Jesuits went in there and just sabotaged the whole website, so that the only one who can safely get on there now is me, because I get on it from my computer, and they haven't messed with my computer, as far as I can tell, and I'm able to safely get on there. But none of the other men feel safe getting on there. They're afraid their clone could get in there. Before, they had scanning technology set up so that only the real person could get onto the website and make comments. Now the scanning technology has been sabotaged by this Vladimir Putin clone. And Vladimir, the real Vladimir Putin, was the administrator of the website. And he was absent in a Jesuit prison in North Korea from December 5th to about December 13th. So that Jesuit Vladimir Putin clone came in there and sabotaged the website and sabotaged the Church of Gail Tower, so that it was no longer safe for my men to stay there. They're now staying at the International Space Station. You may say, how did you find out about the real Vladimir Putin? Well, the last YouTube video that I made, where I asked for prayer for my men because they were all so sick from all the Jesuit bukkake, that's the Jesuit semen that they were forced to, that they went through. It caused many doctors from all over the world to rally to our side and offer to volunteer to help our men get better. One of the doctors, as part of the treatment to try to make them get better, they did thorough genetic code scanning on all of the men, and they determined that Vladimir Putin was a clone and not the real Vladimir Putin. So they found out where the real Vladimir Putin was by doing a memory scan on the Jesuit prisoners we had and asking them where, and determining with memory reads where Vladimir Putin was, and we figured out he was in a North Korean prison. You may say, the Jesuits have like a water shield over their prison. And the way we figured out a technology to break their shield, where we can break the H2O molecule, and once we broke that shield, we were able to use transporter technology. That is where we can actually move the body like you see in Star Trek. You know, using transporter technology, and we got him out of there. But he had his face bashed in from being tortured there, and we got Kim Jong-il out of there as well. And he did plastic surgery on his face, and we have amazing technology, but unfortunately it looks like his lips got bashed pretty good, and we weren't able to fix that completely. Now, like I said, the Jesuits are trying to cover all this up by claiming he had plastic surgery, but don't believe them. They tortured him because he refused to admit publicly that I'm crazy. So, and because he wouldn't give in to their demands, they tortured him. Also, I got an email from Jesuit Zach Knight, and he threatened me and asked me to claim that I'm a Jesuit agent and all sorts of stuff, and I wouldn't give in either. And that I was a horrible woman to order the nuking of this underwater city. The reason the Jesuits are mad at Vladimir Putin is because he ordered the nuking of the Vatican in order to save my life, because the Jesuits at the Vatican were blasting nude photos of me, which they stole from Vladimir Putin from his Jesuit fake wife named Ludmila, who brought them to the trial. She's a Jesuit agent. And they were parading all these photos around the Vatican and making fun of me, and Vladimir could tell they were getting ready to kill me, so he asked me to give him permission to nuke the Vatican, which he did. Unfortunately, even though we tried to save Pope Benedict, the Jesuits attached a bomb to him, and we tried to transport him to our Church of Gail Tower, and when he arrived at the tower, the Pope exploded. And it took out several of our decks, and you can get, Brent Spiner wrote me a letter about this. Anyways, pray that we can get our Church of Gail website fixed. It's a stinking mess right now because the Jesuits went in there and sabotaged it using the Vladimir Putin clone. And we have good doctors on Brent and Vladimir, and they're coming, and Brent and Vladimir and our men are coming back to health. And the Jesuits unfortunately took pictures of all the homosexual rape and sex that they did to these men, and they've already started flashing it around to all the news organizations and trying to ruin my men. So just continue to pray for us. Go to Gabriel Chana, GabrielChana.com/church, CHURCH.html for more on this. And pray for our men. But I had to get the record straight about Vladimir Putin.